At sunrise, one of the most powerful nobles in India is stuck outside a palace door. He commands thousands of horsemen. The man blocking him commands nobody. He simply raises one hand and says, "Wait." And the noble waits. Because inside a Mughal palace, power doesn't move in a straight line. It moves through doors, through numbers, through whispers, 8 ranks, 1 throne, and the closer we get to it, the harder it becomes to tell who's actually in control. Rank 1, the Karkhana artisan. A jeweler bends over a dagger covered in gold. The ruby in its handle could buy his entire neighborhood. He's allowed to cut it, polish it, hold it inches from his face. But when the dagger is finished, he cannot hand it to the emperor. First, an inspector examines the stone. He turns the dagger toward the light, then stops. The ruby sits slightly off-center. The jeweler has spent weeks setting it. Remove it, and the gold around it may bend. Leave it, and the inspector may reject the entire piece. Worse, another workshop could repair it and claim the final result. That's the first rule of power inside the palace. Creating something doesn't mean you control what happens to it. The artisan touches the treasure, but someone else decides whether it reaches the throne. And before anything reaches the throne, it has to pass the door. Rank 2, the Darban. A noble arrives with servants, horses, gifts, and a rank high enough to frighten half the city. None of it matters while the door is closed. The Darban has one order: no one enters until the emperor is ready. The noble claims he was personally summoned. Now the Darban has 2 choices: open the door and risk breaking palace protocol, or keep it closed and publicly embarrass a man powerful enough to remember his face. The noble steps closer. "You know who I am." Of course he does. That's exactly why the decision is difficult. The Darban can't promote him. He can't take his land. He probably earns less than the noble spends on dinner. But for the next 30 seconds, he controls the only thing the noble wants: entry. Then a message arrives from inside. The noble may enter, but only after someone else has been heard first. Someone who doesn't need to argue at doors. Rank 3, the Khwaja. A sealed message arrives from a prince. Seconds later, another arrives from a senior noble. Both demand immediate attention. Only one can be carried into the private imperial chambers first. The Khwaja has access to spaces most men in the empire will never see. But access comes with a problem. Every door you can open creates someone who blames you when it stays closed. Choose the prince, and the noble feels insulted. Choose the noble, and the prince remembers being ignored. Delay both, and whatever happens next becomes your fault. The Khwaja chooses the prince. No explanation, no apology. The noble waiting outside may command 5,000 horsemen. But his message is still sitting in someone else's hand. On paper, he outranks the Khwaja. But paper cannot cross every doorway. A man outside might command an army. The person inside only needs to whisper 5 words in the right room. So which one is more dangerous? Rank 4, the Mansabdar. This is where everybody starts counting. Every Mansabdar carries 2 invisible numbers. Zat determines his personal rank and status. Sawar determines the cavalry obligation attached to him. 10 means one thing. 5,000 means something completely different. The larger the number, the closer he stands to wealth, soldiers, ceremony, and the emperor's attention. But the number also creates a problem. You have to prove you deserve it. An inspector arrives to count the noble's horses. Several are sick. Others are stationed miles away. A few appear on 2 different lists. The Mansabdar insists it's an accounting mistake. The inspector keeps writing. Now the same number that once made the noble powerful has become a promise he may not be able to keep. And the number isn't truly his. The emperor gave it to him. The emperor can shrink it. A noble can walk into court as one of the most important men in the empire, then leave as a warning to everyone else. But the emperor doesn't count every horse himself. Someone decides which report reaches him. Rank 5, the Khani Saman. Before the emperor enters a room, this man's power is already inside it. The carpets, the gifts, the weapons, the royal workshops, the equipment that travels whenever the court moves. The Khani Saman oversees the machinery of the imperial household. Today, 2 visiting nobles have brought gifts. One brings a magnificent jeweled sword. The other brings something far more modest. But the second noble is politically more important. Which gift gets placed closest to the throne? Put the expensive sword in front, and the wrong man appears more favored. Hide it too far back, and its owner sees the insult immediately. Nothing in the room is accidental. Not the carpet, not the distance, not the order in which objects appear. The Kani Saman doesn't simply arrange beautiful things. He arranges what power looks like. A visiting noble may spend a fortune on a gift, but someone else decides whether the emperor notices it. Power isn't always giving the order. Sometimes it's arranging the room where the order gets given. Still, controlling the palace is not the same as controlling the careers inside it. For that, every ambitious Mansabdar watches one man carefully. Rank 6, the Mir Bakhshi. A noble wants a promotion. He doesn't begin by staring at the throne. He watches the Mir Bakhshi. 2 reports arrive about the same commander. The first says his province is calm, his troops are ready, and his performance has been excellent. The second says salaries are late, horses are missing, and local officials are hiding complaints. Both reports carry official seals, both look real, and both cannot be true. If the Mir Bakhshi recommends the promotion, he may reward a fraud. If he blocks it, he may create an enemy among the most connected families in the empire. So he asks for another inspection. The noble hears about the delay before he hears the reason. That's worse. An accusation can be answered. Silence cannot. The Mir Bakhshi can place a man's name before the emperor, alongside the reason not to trust him. He doesn't merely organize careers, he helps shape the version of each man the emperor gets to see. But rank, soldiers, and reputation all have the same weakness. They cost money. Rank 7, the Diwan-i-Ala. The Diwan rarely needs to block a doorway. He controls something much larger: revenue. A Mansabdar may have a glorious title, but horses need feeding, soldiers expect payment. Palaces, campaigns, gifts, and entire households burn through fortunes. Now the Mir Bakhshi recommends creating 3 new high-ranking posts. The court wants them, the nobles expect them, the treasury cannot comfortably fund them. Approve the money, and another part of the empire must wait. Refuse it, and powerful men lose promotions they already believe belong to them. The Diwan opens the accounts again. One province reports a weak harvest, another has sent less revenue than promised. A third insists its payment is still on the road. Every official wants more. Every account offers an excuse. The Mir Bakhshi can help make a man important. The Diwan determines whether that importance can actually function. A rank without resources is just an expensive costume. Now imagine the 2 offices disagree. One says a noble deserves more. The other says the empire cannot afford him. The noble can command soldiers. He can impress the court. He can even reach the emperor, but he cannot order the empire's money to become real. Only one person stands above both offices. Rank 8, the Padshah. When the emperor enters, everyone already knows where to stand. Distance from the throne is not decoration. It's a public measurement of importance. One noble notices he has been placed farther back than last month. Nobody explains why. Nobody needs to. The room has already delivered the message. The Padshah appoints officials, raises Mansabdars, cuts them down, rewards loyalty, and can turn the most feared man in the room into yesterday's problem with a few words. So the answer seems obvious. The emperor has the real power. Except there's one final problem. He cannot see the entire empire himself. He didn't count the horses. He didn't inspect every account. He didn't hear every conversation outside his door. He sees reports carried into the palace, people allowed through its gates, names presented by his officers, accounts prepared by his ministers, messages delivered from rooms he cannot occupy all at once. The artisan controls the object, the Darban controls the door, the Khwaja Sara controls access, the Mansabdar controls men, the Kani Saman controls what power looks like, the Mir Bakhshi controls careers and information, the Diwan controls whether power has money behind it, and the emperor controls them all. At least, he controls the version of them that reaches him. That is the real hierarchy inside a Mughal palace. The highest rank owns the throne. But the most dangerous rank, that might be whoever decides what the throne knows.